Peyman. How are you doing?
Hi, Rupesh. Very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Peyman, could you give us an introduction? I know that you are the president of the AI Forum in London, but could you give us an introduction of who you are and how AI Forum is advancing artificial intelligence?
Yes, thank you. So maybe a little bit of a personal background. I have quite a mixed background, by education, computer science, with a bias towards AI and human-computer interaction. I did a master's degree in human-computer interaction. And then later on in my career, I actually moved towards finance and risk management, but always looking at the role of technology, particularly from an enterprise perspective, the role of technology in terms of operational intelligence or risk intelligence or financial intelligence, so in terms of decision support. So pretty much most of my career, be it in large organizations or in my own companies, has been around how technology can be used as an enabler for decision-making and support. To your question around AI Forum, I set up AI Forum now about 18 months ago, with a view to initially creating a community around the subject of artificial intelligence, but really looking at the marketplace for AI, both from a supply side and a demand side. I mean, you guys know, you've got your own, very large community on LinkedIn. There's a lot of hype around AI at the moment. There's a lot of noise. Part of the mandate of the AI Forum is to separate the noise from the signal. What is really important, companies that really are doing the same thing as 20 years ago, producing some analytics or some statistical visualization, have now called themselves AI, but the product is the same.
Exactly. And it is just much more detailed.
Yeah, really drill down into what is true AI, who are the real players, and what are the key trends in the marketplace to help people make better decisions around either buying or selling artificial intelligence solutions.
That's good. Well, Rupesh, would you please introduce us to our main theme right now?
So yes, like as we spoke before we finalized everything for the podcast, I'd like to give a refresh to the audience. So this comes from the movie Inception, where Leo gave his wife one single word and which changed her entire life to look at reality and dreams. Similarly, to start the self-auto assembly of artificial general intelligence, we're going to have to give an input or one single word command to the AGI. So what would your command be, Peyman?
So yeah, you posed this question to me a few days ago, and I have to admit I've really struggled. Because it's a you can get very philosophical about it and even theological about it, and there's many different aspects to it. And actually that is the beauty of AI. It's a very multidisciplinary, a lot of people think it's a computer science discipline, but actually there's psychology, there's philosophy, there's nature, biology, and so on. It's a complex subject, and that's the beauty of it. That's why I love the subject. But I've really struggled with the question. And, where I've ended up with, and it's a moving target. Every 5 minutes I change my mind. But where I've ended up with is that perhaps it doesn't matter.
Oh,
perhaps it's if it's depending on how we define general artificial intelligence and this sort of total holistic self-learning system. Mm-hmm. Perhaps the initial trigger, like the Big Bang of the universe, mm-hmm. perhaps it doesn't really matter, because it will then take shape.
That's really interesting.
So
because
it could be anything. You could just come up with an arbitrary. And by the way, why it also doesn't have to be in the language, English language. It could be
It
anything.
could be any language. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
It could be just. It could just be a sound. Like a baby. When goo goo gaga. It could be anything. So
you know something, Peyman, that's among the way that I think in terms that it is the subject is so broad that I call it frequencies. Actually, the way I see the world is through frequencies, whether it's language, any particular language, music, feelings, theology, philosophy, is a frequency. And within that frequency, it's not that there is right or wrong, but it is more important that people understand there is a broad range when we're talking about artificial intelligence, that is not just the technicians, but it's the artists, the philosophers, the ethicists. All these people, everybody has something to contribute.
absolutely, I agree. And your point about frequency. I mean, if you think about some animals, dolphins, they communicate through frequencies. The things that we don't hear, but they hear, or birds, and so on. So it could just be a sound. So, so that's one school of thought that it.
Okay. So what sound would you give us?
And I don't think it matters, but I just go goo goo, and just take it from there. But then but just going to the more sort of traditional way of thinking, which is language, which is a human thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to make when we say intelligence, it doesn't necessarily mean human intelligence. Machine intelligence could be
That's
in
correct.
any form. It could be animal intelligence or something out of the universe. So,
Correct.
but if we bring it to the zone of artificial general human intelligence, and so we're talking about the semantics of the words that we have. I've sort of landed on two words.
Okay.
So you can tell I've been really thinking, but also I've been really struggling.
Well, that's good.
What are the two words?
I've landed on two words. One of the words is why.
Okay. As a question, why, right?
As a question.
Yeah, as a question. The inception point is why.
Uh-huh.
And there really, I'm thinking about. I don't know if you guys. I mean, Rupesh, you're probably too young to have children, but if Alberto has, you have children.
Children and grandchildren.
Yeah. So when they get to a certain age, 2-3 years old, where the brain is a sponge, they're picking up every kind of signal from every sensory system, and they're learning everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it becomes incredibly annoying. They ask why about everything. Why is the sky blue? Well, you give them a scientific. Well, why is that blue? Why is
But
why are you getting into your car? Why? But actually, it's a very powerful word for.
It triggers a lot of questions. The curiosity in kids triggers a lot of questions which sometimes we don't know how to answer.
Yeah, and
you are the second person that have given me a question as the first. The other one is a friend of mine who is Eduardo. Is one of the most intelligent people that I know. He's an electrical engineer, and very, very well known for his inventions and contribution to the engineering and networking and internet. Really, Phil. And he also gave me a question. He was the first one. You're the second. But the other thing that you said is about family, children, your children, and they reach a point. I'm never gonna forget my oldest child, which now is in her mid-30s, an accomplished psychiatrist. When she was about 2 or 3 years old, I was putting something. I was using a hammer, and I smashed my finger, and I say a swear word in Spanish. She doesn't hear Spanish. She only hears mostly English at home. And she went to my mother the next day and said, "Abuelita," which means grandma in Spanish, says, "Abuelita, what does this word mean?" She only heard once, but children are like a sponge. And see, Now, if you think about children being a sponge and they have all the information, imagine that your artificial intelligence why as the first node or filter. Now it have all the internet, all the digital information.
Correct.
How would it react? You know, the good things, why hopefully it can explain it. But how can he explain wars? How can he explain famines? How can he explain all those things with why?
It would be fun seeing the implications of the why, because the answers to the why will be in gray, black and white. Like,
well, yes and no. One of the beauties of the question why, and no matter what the answer is, you can ask it again about the answer. So
true.
So
wow.
Yeah, it creates an infinite feedback loop.
Yeah.
Of why.
Wow.
So if you know, it's almost like an if-then statement of learning, but an infinite loop. In the management science world, the other bit of my education is that I did an MBA at the London Business School, many years ago, and one of the disciplines that we studied there was total quality management, which is used by the Japanese in industry. And in the 80s, then it came to the US, and
Kaizen.
the Toyotas, Kaizen.
Where is Kaizen? Yeah.
Kaizen, exactly. And Kaizen has a principle that they used for industrial manufacturing and lean manufacturing those days, which is the 5 whys. That, you don't stop after one why, you ask another why, and then you ask another why. It gives you an understanding of the causal relationship between things, which really is some of a psychological neural network, actually. It's a psychological...
something, Peyman, I try to learn something every day. What I learn from you in terms of artificial intelligence, that the learning loop is Kaizen, and is comprised on why, because as you well stated, there's no limit to why.
Exactly.
And with that, I would like to finish the segment because of the time that we have right now. I want to thank you. Let me tell you, and we want to have you again, as well as member of your board of directors or advisors or any other individual. We'll really appreciate. I asked all our audience, turn to the AI forum. They have their website have very good and relevant content. And with that, we thank you, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much to have you on the podcast.
Thank you both, and it's my pleasure, and I hope we'll get many more opportunities to work together.